Today I'm going to talk about the tip pruning of junipers. It's very convenient that I'm here. If you look at all these things here, although we're keeping these for cuttings, this is how junipers normally grow. Long tips like this, long tips. So these we cut off and we're going to use it for cuttings, but this talk is not about cuttings. It's about how we deal with the tips on junipers. If you look at this lovely juniper here, this is typical. Let me go against a bit of white background, you can see clearly. You look at these long tips here. This is how junipers grow. So when you see a juniper in its full glory, look at this one. It is all this lovely pom-pom shape without any long tips growing. But this doesn't happen by itself. It happens by pruning the tips out. So the way junipers grow, and in fact all plants grow, but junipers, they produce these long straggly shoots, and to keep it in good condition, you have to go around and take the tips out like that. All the tips have to be taken out. Sometimes we leave them on to make the tree strong, like you do with all plants. But if you want to keep it in good condition all the time, this is what you have to do virtually all the time. Sometimes, as I told you, we keep them long because we use it for propagating. So these long tips are used for propagating. So this has, the tips have been taken out. Now this, again, this is an Itoigawa, you can see. We've deliberately left this long because we wanted to create a nice taper here. So we've let it, the tips have grown long. So if you didn't prune the ends of this, it becomes a long branch like this. So you can lose control completely, but this has been done deliberately because we wanted a better taper. So there are many ways of doing it. But what I'm trying to emphasize is that all junipers grow when they produce these long tips. And it's not just, this is the Chinensis Itoigawa, but let's look at another juniper. This tree here is the squamata juniper, this grey juniper, which nowadays in the UK, not many people like it, but I think I did mention in the old days people liked it. So you can see these long tips here. That has been left to grow for about 1 or 2 years, and it's become long like that. This is going to be another project. Look at this one. This has become long. I should have to take it back like that. So all these tips have to be headed back. I will also go to the field and show you how we deal with these trees in the field. You look at this one, that long tip there. That hasn't been, this was a tip at one point, and it's become so long because we forgot to head it back. So I've got to cut some of these long. So if you didn't take the tip out, it becomes long like this. So I can still take the tip out by doing this. By doing this. This is a general principle that applies to all plants and trees, not just evergreens, that means junipers and pines, but deciduous trees as well. I keep reminding people that a lot is said and written about ramification, and it's made to make it so complicated, but all you're doing is stopping the ends from growing long, and by doing that, you get it to bud back shorter. These we have deliberately left to grow long because we wanted to make the tree strong, but this is what happens if you don't take the tips out. So this is the squamata juniper. I'll continue showing you what we do. So this has been a bit neglected, but we've let it grow just to make the tree strong. So this is a tip I'm taking out. I'm taking all that tip out. And by taking it out at the end, I'm going to force new growth further back there. But I can prune this down here, so I have a plan for this tree, but like that one is much too long. So I can prune that back there. See how long that tip is, how long this tip is. I can take it back to about half. So because we have hundreds and hundreds of these trees around the nursery, I can't get round to all of them, but these are jobs that need to be done. So wherever the long tips are growing, off they come, and that will keep it dense and compact. So this is going to be an interesting project. This I started about 15 years ago, but I've just let it get older and more mature. So that's a long tip. Have a look, see how long that is? That has been taken out. That's a long tip. Take that out. Take that out. All these tips have been taken out, and by doing that, it will make it bud back further. While we're talking of junipers, I'm going to take you into field at some stage to show you how we do it to the field-grown trees as well. Now this is the squamata. How about other varieties? Let me walk to another area if you follow me. We will take you to show this 500-year-old needle juniper. And this needle juniper, this is an interesting tree. I've shown it many, many times before. If you can come and look at it this way, this is the old trunk. This is a very old tree. This is the tree that came into the UK in 1962. And you see how long these shoots have grown. This tree was returned to me last year because the owner felt he couldn't look after it anymore. So I've left it to grow. I've grown these long shoots deliberately, leaving them unpruned for a very good reason. By leaving this shoot to grow long like this, it produces a lot of foliage, and the foliage in turn feeds into the tree and makes the tree strong again. So you can see how strong and rampant it is. And there's a deliberate reason for doing it, because I wanted to make the tree healthy and regenerate by producing all that green shoots to produce the carbohydrates to feed back into the tree. I'm not going to cut it just yet. This growth has occurred since March or April of this year. I will probably leave it till next March, and next March I'm going to prune these back and I will start to rewire this tree. So sometimes we leave these for a very, very good reason. Now I've got junipers all over the nursery. I turn around here. These are Blaw's junipers. As you know, Blaw's is one of my very favorite species of junipers, and left to their own devices, this is how Blaw's juniper grows. They grow long shoots like this. And all these long shoots are deliberately grown long because I want the tree to grow big. But to get that pom-pom effect like this, it has to be pruned back. You can see that long shoot. That is about 3 or 4 months growth. If I wanted to make it pom-pom again, I cut it back to there. I'm not going to cut it because there's a reason for doing that. But this is the sort of thing I do. Again, like that. So this is how junipers grow. And if I left that to grow, it'll become long like this. In fact, all Chinese junipers have this growth habit. They grow in this inverted vase shape, inverted triangular shape, and you make it into a triangular shape by wiring the branches down. You can see how I've been wiring the branches down with the thick wires. This is what we do. Another example of these long branches, and these are going to be wired down like this to make the triangular shape. So these long shoots, as I said, the tips, if left to grow unchecked, they become long branches. But if you want the pom-pom effect, you have to prune them back at the tip. I can walk around the nursery and show you so many examples of junipers. We've got junipers everywhere. And of course, if I can just digress a little bit, let's look at the larches, for instance. Now, this is not a juniper. It's just to emphasize that all plants, whether they're pines, junipers, or larches, they produce these long shoots. Just as a long spiky bit on the junipers left unpruned, these have been left unpruned, but at some point, if you want to have that nice pom-pom effect, you have to prune these long shoots back. All these have been pruned back, unless you want to change the shape of the tree. They produce a long branch and you can wire the branch into shape. So So if you can imagine that this was a juniper, these would be the equivalent of the long spiky bits. I can walk you around other places. There's another big needle juniper here. And if you look at this, this is another very old juniper, again a customer's tree. And because it was not healthy, I've left it to grow long shoots to make it healthy again. And when it's healthy again, we will restyle the tree. These are untrained larches. And again, these would be the equivalent of the long tips like in the juniper, but this is a larch. I've left it to grow deliberately because I have visions as to what I'm going to do with this. I'm going to probably wire it into another shape. So I've left this to grow as a branch. So you don't always keep trimming them back. There are particular times when you have to program the tree and think what you're going to do in the future so that you can engineer the tree in whatever way you wish. I'm going to move around some other examples to show you more examples of how we deal with the tips. Large rock planting of Itoigawa juniper. This was made exactly 20 or 21 years ago. We showed it for the first time in the 2005 Chelsea Flower Show. And again, it's back on the nursery. And if you look at this tree closely, you will see that I have not pruned this for 2 months, and the shoots are about 1 inch long like that, these long tips here. So that is what I would have to prune back, these long tips, if I'm to keep it in good condition. But at this point, because this tree is more or less in a showable condition, I will just keep it tidy and not grow long shoots, because I don't need to grow a new branch. I don't need to make a long trailing branch somewhere else. So because this tree has reached its optimum position, I'm just going to keep it like this by taking the tips out. So all these finished trees are treated in the same way. So again, if we look at the benches here, these are all trees that are more or less finished, like so. So you see how neat and tidy the pads are. There are no long shoots because we have constantly kept pruning at the tips. So this is another example. This one, you can see how the tips are growing, so I need to take that off. So this is the general care for junipers. Take the tips out. While I'm doing that, I should mention, I think I've said it before, when you prune junipers, you don't just go around and shear the thing off like that. You don't just do that. You have to do it very precisely. That means you've got to use the tips of these long scissors and just go into the wood. You go into the wood and take the wood out. If you shear across the foliage, you make the entire length of the foliage brown in color. So never shear across. Just go into the wood and take each tip out like that. So you see that this has grown a little bit, so I've got to take that out. So if you want to keep it in this sort of exhibition state, you have to go around meticulous all the time and take the growing tips out. So this is a care of junipers. This is the Itoigawa, the chinensis. So if you look around everywhere, today is the 4th of September, so we are starting to get into autumn, and at autumn the trees are not growing so fast, so it's still safe to do all this. You can do it right into the winter as well. I'm not going to talk about pines in case it confuses you. So now these are the semi-trained Itoigawas. Again, you see all these long shoots. We deliberately don't prune these long shoots because when we sell it to customers, they may have their own ideas as to what they're going to do with the tree. They may use this for a long branch. See, that could be a long branch. So we don't do anything. And this long branch, which was left to make a good taper, we're going to aerate here. So I get another tree from here. And the main tree is going to be over here, this size. So this is what's happening to these ones. Now, from the what we call sublime to the ridiculous. Let me show you a large garden tree. So while I'm here, now this is not Chinese juniper. This is the European Sabina juniper. I think these come from either Spain or the Alps, and all junipers with this cord-like foliage behave in the same way. And in like 2 months, look at that long growth here. This tip here. This, because this is almost a finished tree, I will take it off to keep it like that. That's growing long, I take that off. So all the long shoots we have to take off to maintain that very tight dome effect. So this is a continuous job, constant job. This, in case you don't know what it is, I've shown it on my YouTube videos before, is a large Hollywood juniper called Junipers chinensis kaizuka. And in Japan they're used mainly for garden trees, and I planted this about 35 years ago, no thicker than 1 inch in diameter. Now it has a diameter of about 2 or 3 feet. It had 3 large trunks. I took off the 2 big trunks and growing as a central trunk there, and this is going to be a large garden tree. Now again, if I can just show you, look at those long spiky bits over there. I'll have to get a ladder to take those spiky bits off. These ones are looking more kept in condition because I did take the growing tips out. So by taking the growing tips out, I've got this very bonsai effect. You see, these pads are perfect. They're perfect. But I can't reach those ones, but I will get to that. So these long shoots, you have to constantly keep on top of them to get this effect. I've got the same effect over here. You look at this pad here. Now this lovely cloud effect has come. See, these I pruned only about 2 weeks ago. These are all my prunings from here. You see what we did? We pruned all these off. So by pruning this, these long shoots, I've got this very nice domed cloud effect. Those ones, as I said, I've got to reach up there to prune it. So if you want this effect, you have to constantly take the tips out. And we'll walk to the field and show you, because we've got a lot of other junipers growing in the field. These junipers are San Jose juniper, and they've been grown in our nursery for the last 40 years. In fact, longer than that, because they're much older than 45 years old. They were grown at another nursery in the open ground, and I bought it off them and planted it in these large containers. So again, you see, San Jose, I will show you it. I've got to take the tips out. San Jose is a juniper that has 2 types of foliage. For those of you who are fairly new to bonsai, let me show you. If you home in on this, this is what we call the cord-like foliage. This is called adult foliage. Cord-like, almost like the Chinese juniper, Itoigawa, or even the Kisu, they're like this. But this spiky foliage, this is called the juvenile or baby foliage, like that. So on the San Jose junipers, you get 2 types of foliage. But if you grow it in a pot for many, many years and don't get it rampant, then they will produce mostly the adult foliage. So that's a tip I pass on to you. If you want the adult foliage, you've got to keep it root restricted. This is another San Jose here. Look at the size of them. I then show you the trunk. They're about 1 foot in diameter, that's trunks. And look at this tree. If you home in on it, you see, on the same branch you have both the adult and the juvenile foliage. Both types of foliage. So again, if I wanted to keep it more of the tight formation, I've got to take the tips off like this. All the tips off. Just to go around. I know that we don't have enough labor to do it, but if we want to keep it compact, this is what we have to do. All the time on the nursery, go around and take the extremities out to keep the tree compact. Like this, the entire tree you have to go around and just keep doing this. All this, keep doing this. So it'll make it bud further back into the tree. So I hope this little explanation has given you a feel for that. So you see, this one has been done. This is another type of juniper. This is Juniperus chinensis grey owl. And again, I have been taking the tips out. This is a more sparse juniper. It's almost like the Itoigawa foliage, but very loose looking. But it's grown mainly for the trunk. I'm not going to look at the pines because I can get carried away if I start talking about the pines. But the pines are not very much different. So again, if I could have some volunteers, they can come and do this to their heart's content, because this is a job that needs to be done constantly, to keep the pads nice and dense and not letting them get too leggy and too long. So this is how you treat the junipers. So the spiky ends have to be pruned when you want to keep it in that nice compact condition. But if you want a new branch or grow an extension, then you don't prune it. So there's a time and place for different types of pruning. So I hope this little video about tip pruning of junipers will give you an insight as to what you need to do with junipers.